Alright, I haven't been through these races actually, so I thought it'd be easy to do it this way. Just do it how I normally would. And you can abuse me. Make sure I've got all the files first. I second that, John. Holy shit, yeah. Esperant's still racing. Well, you better go and find a winner there. There's race one. I still haven't perfected how to make this look as good as possible, but it is what it is. I'll keep working on it. I love the bush pigs. Yep. You like horse racing also. Thoughts on the wheels, right? I'll get there. I don't think there was anything wrong with it, but I'll get there. Alright, so Randwick, pretty normal day. Nothing too crazy. The 6 was bollocks. It was never a 6. Closer to a 4. Races that went from the sort of mile and further, maybe even a bit quicker than a 4, including chicken noodles this week. Bias-wise, I thought it was probably an advantage to be up on speed, which was predicted in the morning, and a little bit difficult to come from back and wide without a significant pace advantage. So sympathetic to horses that came from back and wide as a rule, and yeah, definitely up there and closer to the fence wasn't a disadvantage. Is this track grader a professional or just a steward? I've got no idea, to be honest. Whether it's the course curators, I would assume. I don't think the stewards are out there in the mornings. They just do a gallop and get a sort of a read on things from whoever does the gallop, the jockey, and I usually send 2 and go and have a look at it themselves. But I don't know whether they're told to be cautious or what. I saw a video on the Saturday morning where the fella expected an upgrade to a 5, but it was never anything worse than a 4 at any stage. So, you know, it's a fair way out. It's pretty bad, and I think they upgraded to a 5 at one point, but it was still wrong. So first race was this 2-year-old race. Make it as big as I can. Pace-wise, it was actually a pretty good race overall, and they've gone out pretty quick to the 800, sped up to the 600, and then come home, you know, above average. Still ran good time overall. So when I say that sort of stuff, I'm not talking about sort of in against par or anything like that. This is for their classes. So this is sort of what I'll talk about. So it's been a good win from Snitzerland, because you can see there it's sort of caught wide early and forced to press forward outside the leader. Shangri-La Express has been forced to do a little bit more work. Pretty average ride, I thought, on the Friedman horse, if you sort of go back. Definitely driven, and then wanted to grab hold as soon as he got there. I'll be forgiving a bit going forward. It may not be until next prep. We'll have a look at this horse in a sec, Duvana. But of those up front, you can see sort of Fly got keen. What was this horse called? Enriched, got keen after sort of being driven, then grabbed hold of. Snitzerland's had to work quite hard. Whilst, you know, all that tempo's in the race, they're going fast. Leader sort of gets into a rhythm by this stage, but they're still going quick. I actually thought this race had come out a little bit weaker than this, and good efforts by the 2 on-speed horses. Fly, a complete forgive. You see it in behind there. It never really gets room to move. She'll take great benefit from the experience, being her first start. I thought this horse was a complete forgive, Enriched, and as I said, I'll talk about Duvana in a sec. So all 4, 5, 6, 7, I thought they were all good runs pretty much. I think this race will turn out, as I said, a little bit better than what I thought. Snitzerland, really good, and a lot better than it probably suggests to the eye. Really strong win. Second horse went better than I thought it would. The third horse probably went a little bit better. I thought it went good at first start, but a little horse and did a great job. Fly, as you can see, big strong filly. She'll improve significantly. and then we'll go back and watch Duvana. It's weird, this horse, because it doesn't go early, but it doesn't go early in trials either. So that's a bit of a worry. But if this horse learns how to travel early in its races, and see how quickly it picks up here, I think it's by done deal. Beautiful looking creature, sort of gets in behind. Very strange ride from this point. It was on the back of Tardelli. Could have easily come around them. And I know it's poor to generalise, but a typical Jason Collett ride back to the inside. For what reason, I've got no idea. You can see there, you can nearly argue this horse should have been in the finish. I've got little doubt it would have beat home the two in front of it, and it sort of hardly ever got warm through the line. Yeah, I don't know whether he was told to give the horse that sort of experience and worry about things later on, but this is a horse, the slipper might be a bit sharp for it, but size, Champagne, yeah, it's hard to say that any horse in the race went better than it going up in distance. But going towards slipper and probably a lead-up race, I still think Shangri-La Express will probably have the least improvement, even though Switzerland had a run under its belt. I'm still concerned this horse will have another run or two in it, this prep. I think it'll be a very good horse in 6 to 12 months. And then sort of Fly and Duvana's the one that looks like it's got all sorts of upside going to races like the Champagne and Size if it holds together, and even this little horse Tardelli. Interesting go forward. I think they all went quite well. Stormcat is a cat. Storm Boy is a cat. I rated Switzerland 94. Someone on Twitter rated Storm Boy's runner 93. Surely Switzerland are moral. Well, I'll talk about the slipper later when I sort of look at these markets, but I think, Gay's got 5, 6, 7 horses in the race that are all going to go forward. I don't think Storm Boy is going to be fast enough to go with a few of them, so it's going to be in a similar spot to Switzerland, and I think Switzerland will be ridden off speed in a race like the slipper, and it'll be very interesting to see what it does. I just think physically it's got to get there. That's its biggest problem. But away from Gaze, Duvana and Switzerland certainly very interesting, and I'm keen to see Fly get to the outside in a race and see what it can do as well. Complete for Giving Rich. All right, race 2. Won't spend as much time on these races like highways and midways just because they're not that exciting. What's your biggest punting win? Fioronte in the Melbourne Cup, whenever that was. Feels like it was 1,000 years ago. It was my biggest win. I couldn't tell you how much. It was a good day. It was a good day. 3 metre rails per day. How much I win? I don't know. It was somewhere between 700 and $1 million, I think. What was this race? 1,000 metre benchmark 72. Controlled tempo to the 800, slowed down even further to the 600, then sprinted home really sharply. So I thought this was a really good ride on the winner, especially. Marshall Music, weird horse, earmuffs. They tried to take him off, didn't work. Freshened it up, which is how this horse races best. Put the earmuffs back on. See, I think that's Alexio go up in the air there. Really good ride because he didn't pressure this horse early, Marshall Music, and they really controlled the tempo, which is probably against Mad Darcy, is it? Who gets back in the field. Rebel Dean had that inside run, every possible chance. The leader Procrastinator, every possible chance. But really good controlled ride, I thought, from Chad Schofield here, just to let this horse sort of build momentum. As I said, it's a weird horse. You just don't want to get it fired up, and he did a really good job here, and then it sustains a really strong sprint from the 600 metre mark, which basically made it impossible for Mad Darcy to run it down. Really well set up for this race. A horse you've got to be really cautious about backing off a win like this because it does tend to not reproduce. So fresh is best for this horse. Middling draws where it can sort of work into the race and doesn't have to be dug up. Inside draws are against it because it has to be stirred up unless it can sort of bounce and control, which is very rare in a short course race that you don't have early pressure. And yeah, I thought there was some other good runs in the race. I said Rebel Dean was every possible chance, probably whatever you call it. Back in the pack, I thought Sam Kavanagh's horse was not bad at all. Can't remember what it's called. Beat Test. Just completely cast wide after bouncing really well. And then sort of just was a victim of circumstance. Had to drag back. Maybe that short course is the key to it. A complete forgive. Delexio was a complete forgive after where it got to in the run. I didn't mind this run of Super Freds. It's the sort of horse that could bounce up in show up in a 900-metre race or something like that at Newcastle and do something. Worst result on the punt. I had 140,000 on El Rocker in the Caulfield in the Randwick Guineas. Yeah, Super Fred's there popping up the inside. Didn't think it was a bad run and sort of Beat Test as a good last, and Delexio was a forgive, but it's a bit of a funky horse. This horse can be placed to advantage. It can be placed back in grade, and the first two have done good jobs. Mad Darcy's returned really well. That stable's absolutely flying. Pfeiffer, and just be careful of Marshall Music. Just needs to be freshened up and find the right race. Pretty nothing race. Declared Tessark to the old boss and ended up having let go from work. Being let go from work. Who's Tessark? Was that at Pinjarra now or something? Just picking my nose.
Oh, well.
Johnny, sorry to interrupt you, mate, but I have a question. When a horse goes, retires, how do we find out what happened? Tessark, Queensland, I don't know. Ring up the trainer. What's the horse? Tesarc. 9-year-old Gelding by Testarossa. Trained by Mark Curry. Who was it when Dwyer had it, or when Henley had it, when Daniel Want had it, or when Curry had it? When Curry had it, I'm assuming. I can probably find out, but not too many people know. I'll find out. I'll even write it down. Yeah, so there's not much out of that race. That was it. Beat Test to forgive and can be placed to advantage in something a little bit easier. Beat Super Freds, something really easy. 900, at Newcastle would suit it. And these two horses are going well enough. Probably Marshall Music just needs a freshen. Race 3, I definitely will not spend a lot of time on this one. So highway race, they go 100 miles an hour here, like 16 lengths above average for the grade to the 600, come home 10 below. So those up on speed have worked quite hard. Forgiving of them. Anything that's come back. What was your biggest bet on Saturday? Bugger all. I had a lot of multis, small ones, with Learning to Fly and the last winner, Thunderstruck, whatever it's called, but none of them saluted. None of the ones that were worth anything anyway. So up in front here's Marisi and Learning to Fly. Learning to Fly, I'm going well. Like a Storm, outside leader. So a really good effort from Like a Storm. I'd say it's probably the run of the race. Favourite, the winners in here, Faze Angel, every possible chance, good ride from the girl. I think she got suspended for it, or at least reprimanded for pushing out here. But she did a good job to get away from the inside at the right time. I think that's Danielle Sieb's horse called Kenichi coming around it. It sort of just gets pushed wider. There's not too much to be learnt here, I didn't think. Just a superior sort of stayer, the winner. It's got city class. The rider was always going to be the question mark. And then sort of the one-paced horses in behind that was suited by the fast tempo finish off. The rest really struggle. So I thought Like a Storm was a good effort to sit outside that speed and kick on well, and tried really hard at the end even though it was entitled to drop off when the others had the softer runs behind trailing or further back even. So good ride on the winner. Full credit, and the rest that were sort of running on late were somewhat flattered by that tempo, I thought. Not much to be learned there. Who were they? Brock Cafe, yeah, every possible chance. Brock Cafe, Magic Pharaoh, beyond every chance. Kenichi just got that shunt, but still pretty much every chance, and those behind were working pretty hard. The horse that led got beat 30 lengths, so again, that's a good sign for Like a Storm that it ran really well there. Race 4, this horse is quite weird. We learn more from Johnny. I agree, Joshua. No, doing all 10 races is good. Why are you reviewing highways and midweeks? Because they run every week. So Wind Chat, really weird horse, come back with 2 enormous runs. So it's the fastest of the day to the 200 metre mark, and still sort of sustaining pretty solid sections from that point on. Might have got a bit tired late, but it had done a lot of work. It's sort of gone 3 above to the 800, 5 above to the 6. So it's quickened really early, and still managed to sort of run home 2 lengths above for the last 600 and run really fast time. So this horse is doing an incredible job. Obviously, always been a little bit quirky. I was a little bit wary of it on Saturday just because it hasn't been able to back up those first up runs with a second up run. In the past, but did it here. So a good ride from Jay Ford. Strange that I thought it was in a bit of trouble here, Wind Chat, when it didn't lead and sort of ping, because it sort of usually is that sort of horse that it's looks a bit fresh and runs them along and does a good job. But he had to wind the horse up a bit, which adds further credit to the winner, I would say, and maybe says this horse will get a little bit further. 1,300 second up, maybe 14, 1,500 won't have an issue. So, yeah, good ride, controlled, kicked Tashi every possible chance on the back of it. I think it'll improve off this run. Nearly expected a flat run, so meritable every possible chance. In the 1-1, Barossa Rosa sat outside the solid tempo and probably had the hardest run in the race. The ones out the back, absolutely no excuse, even except that they've sort of the tempo is not fast. It's more a even, strong gallop that they've run fast time. So it is actually hard to make ground in these situations. So Cuban Royale probably isn't a bad effort coming down the outside here with the young apprentice on it. But yeah, full credit to the winner. Second horse, every possible. I think it'll improve off that, and I think that's as good as it can go. The winner's just a better horse. Third horse is going well, but very hard to place, and that's about it. Fast time. I did a lovely graphic that I will show. Where is it? Where's my graphic? Don't know. It's gone. Where are you? I spent so much time on doing this. Look at this. High quality graphics. High quality graphics. So what's that? It's not what we want. Yeah, high quality graphics. So I will talk about the betting a little bit. I did forget to do it. So here, that's the Melbourne Times. Why is it doing that? Why is it changing to that? Race 5, the Expressway Stakes. Probably an interesting race to talk about betting wise here is that this horse just blew a gale. It was extremely strange considering it looked the only danger. First time viewer here, John. Just want to know what computer program you're using. Yeah, so this is Ratings to Win. It's what I use all the time. Yeah, it saves me a lot of time for a lot of reasons. I will go through little bits and pieces. I'll probably do a stream just talking about it. I don't use a lot of the components. It's probably a little bit out of control. Yeah. It's it's probably a little bit out of control for most people, a bit too much, but it certainly saves me a lot of time. So it's King of Sparta's race, very strange that it was like $2.90 to $5 ish at one point. I think SP 420 a little bit better than that with the exchange. Get it up for my own peace of mind. Put it over here. Yeah, so it was like, what did it start? $5-ish still on the exchange, $4 was the official SP. Very weird, just considering it was the only real danger to Buenos Noches on paper. Like the obvious only danger, had a decent setup, trialled well since last start. James McDonald mapped better than Buenos Noches. Very strange that it went to $5. I think it scared a lot of people. It certainly scared me. I wasn't going to charge into $1.70 Buenos Noches, but very, very weird betting. It didn't make sense. So interested to see the way the race unfolded. We'll watch it. I know Nash has been questioned. I think there's an inquiry open. I don't think it's justified, but you just always knew this horse was going to be back. There's a huge preparation ahead for it. Hi, El Duna. Hi, Duna. You knew there's a big preparation ahead. You knew that TJ Smith was sort of on the target, Newmarket TJ Smith, then talking about going to England. So it was not going to be wound up. Had trialled well. And it was always going to be sort of rear half of the field. Good chance it was going to be last. I think Nash's only really thing that he does wrong here is he probably thinks at this stage he's going to get the back of King of Sparta, and he's just a little bit soft in not holding that position, and then Brock gets reprimanded for cutting him off. So it's probably 80% Nash's fault for not holding that position and 20% Brock's for chopping him off, or maybe 60-40, but either way, Nash was always going to be in a very similar position to there. That's why the betting really didn't make sense. And once King of Sparta was alive and didn't have an issue, it was pretty much always going to be in the finish from this spot. So Josh, better ride on Malkovich this time, didn't muck around. Tempo-wise, let's have a look. Tempo-wise, it's like a very even tempo to the 800. They speed up to the 6, so he drops the hammer from the 8 to the 6, and they come home below. So it's not as if there's any great merit in any of the runs here. The leader's done a good job trying to sustain a long run from the 800 metre mark, basically, but that was, a much better tactic than trying to sit out sprinter horses like King of Sparta and Buenos Noches. So I think the tactics were right on the leader. The second horse has run really well. First up, no blinkers, obviously going to improve off that. Did have the run that it likes. It's a free-going horse that appreciates that sort of tempo. Who else do we have in this race? Golden Mile, okay, whacks away back to the middle. King of Sparta, every possible chance. Fittest horse in the race. And best setup, had the nicest run, really. Buenos Noches obviously had to give that extra couple of length start, and Straight Aces had a nice run back in the middle, and there just looks like it knocks up. So all of them okay runs, I think. Got sort of King of Sparta had to win the way the race was run. Certainly Malkovich has run well. Cold Crush has run well. Straight Aces obviously just knocked up. And West of Dalby was just really poorly placed. And probably runs, a better race if it doesn't have to sort of reverse park a bit early. Buenos Noches a pass first up for sure. Nothing wrong with its run, but certainly nothing super flash. He does improve with racing. He's a bit of a funny horse though. King of Sparta versus Amelia Julian the Quokka. Is that where it's going? Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't heard that. I heard that Espiona might be going there. Sixth to 10th place. What I can't understand is how the bunnies were $2.40 last night, was it? Night before. $2.40 against St George. You'll never see that again for the rest of the year. But yeah, from that race, Buenos Noches said a pass. He's the most knowledgeable punter, in my opinion. Triscay Stakes, all right. So this was another race where betting was interesting. Talking point, obviously, Alentia. tempo-wise, controlled tempo to the 800 again. They sort of sped it up from the 8 to the 6 and got going, and then not a lot of merit. So overall, pretty even to... Well, it's pretty even tempo, to be honest. They maybe just go a little bit early, and the overall time is nothing flash for the grade. It's okay. So at the start, Alentia obviously here just cops a little check. Either or, Penthouse, they're always sort of going to settle 1-2. It was a pretty easy to determine map. I actually thought that there's a good chance Samana would drop in 3rd, 4th. I was a little bit worried about where it was going to settle at this point. Diamond Dealer held that position, and I know that I think he got suspended actually. Not a big suspension, 4 or 5 day suspension for dropping here and pushing Tommy to the rail. Doesn't look like there's much in it visually, but there must have been, I'm assuming. But either way, I was surprised that Tommy sort of let him in. It looked like he got him pretty easy, but whatever. Again, these runners back here, especially if Samana's had the run of the race at this point, so is Alentia. Same Majik, every possible chance back on the inside as well, gets to the right part of the track. Alentia, was there a spot where he could have probably got off here maybe? Could he have followed Diamond Dealer around? Pretty tough decision. You're following, a 12-1 chance as opposed to a 7-2 chance, but you got 2 leaders that are likely to tire. Is he going to be able to follow this horse through? Is the percentage play to get on the back of the horse that's, got the better setup and going to be strong? Hard to say. I would say that percentage-wise, the best play was to follow Samana. You've got a horse that can sustain a sprint. If you sort of could have backed yourself to out-sprint Samana rather than ride for luck and try and out-sprint them and get underneath them, but 50-50 call probably. Same Majik, every possible chance looks the winner, and again just struggles to put a race away. Valentia steams up behind them. Nearly gets put through the running rail, but that was certainly no one else's fault. But the rider really at this stage tried to take a run that pretty much wasn't there, and lucky to get through it. Gutsy ride, but yeah. Second horse, arguably, you could probably fairly arguably a good thing beaten, but the winner sort of has got a full head of steam up and is a winner, pretty strong horse. So you can't really be certain it would have got past it either way. They're all pretty similar efforts, the winner and the second horse. Who's coming home is Fabergé, just a limited horse that did really well off the back of a solid tempo. Diamond Dealer really solid again. The 2 leaders pretty solid. She's all class, disappointing, but trialled up a bit that way. Throw the race in the bin. Pretty much. It's mare's form. I'd struggle to see this following to like a super high class, but the winner is just a real racehorse, does nothing flashy, just tries really hard and can hold a position, so can't knock it. Alentia needs a little bit more luck. The third horse is just going to be struggling to find a race to win, I think. Race 7 Apollo Stakes. Interesting, this looked a lot better visually than it probably does on paper. Obviously, it's Group 2 race, but tempo-wise, not a lot in it. Pretty even tempo. They get home okay. The winner does, run a really strong last 800, 6 lengths above standard the last 800, but that's very similar to what Samana did in the 1200 for comparison. So, whilst this looks a really flashy win, doesn't really back it up on the clock. Horses for reference here, probably of interest going forward. Buckaroo, which is dragged out the back. Cascadian's last, gets a really poor ride, Cascadian. Leader controls are tractable. Think It Over ends up sitting outside it. Lindemann was very unlucky, sort of just looked like it was going to land outside that tempo, and then when Nash pushes forward, Tim sort of forced her a strain. Navajo Pete comes up 3 wide. Arapaho on the fence. Militarise certainly every possible chance. Fangirl off its back. Buckaroo there poking up the inside, and Cascadian goes up the fence. Buckaroo, I was just listening, and I think they said sort of ram, but and then I guess like Queen Elizabeth, something like that, will be its grand final. Yeah, Fangirl pretty much just exposes these horses. She's just got a far superior sprint. Once she's within sort of 2-3 lengths of them, and it's pretty much game over, obviously. She hardly ever moves on it. It did look like Winx. I agree that it's sort of a bit overused, but it was a little bit flattered. You got Cascadian going up the inside. Buckaroo ran up their backsides. Lindemann has got nowhere to go and gets out late. And Militarize is probably the one that's very, very lucky to run second. None of these horses are like either in a spot where they can't do anything. This horse is still building its momentum. The only two horses that have had uninterrupted runs are Militarize and Fangirl. As I said, they're not doing a lot on the clock. So, yeah, I would agree with Pay the Punters there that there's a good chance this horse will go around silly odds next start, and especially with James McDonald getting off and saying, she may never get beat in this preparation, things like that. Obviously a very soft win, but as I was saying, at this stage, you've got Militarize still in. This horse is out and around. It's definitely been given the best ride, considering, not a lot of margin between first and last, and it's the only horse really in free air other than the two leaders. You got Cascadian running up the back of him, Tim in restricted room on Lindemann, and for whatever reason, Buckaroo hasn't popped out either, and even Militarize is late to get out. So it's not as if he got held up, Militarize, but Buckaroo certainly does get held up here. Lindemann does, and so does Cascadian. So she's got that great sprint, which everyone is completely aware of. But she doesn't go crazy quick home. Like as I said, not a lot quicker than, say, Samana, that last 600 or 800 metres. So Buckaroo warms up really nicely through the line. Lindemann probably should have run second, or Buckaroo. I'd say one of those two. And Cascadian's just been given none, ran up their backsides. Past marks to, think it over, considering it was first up. I don't think it's the horse it was. I don't think it's any sort of super force, but can certainly pick up the right race, placed well enough. Lindemann, I think, is the probably horse that can improve in not top grade, but sort of Group 2, Group 3 level next time out. No knock on Arapahoe's return, really nice and attractable. Again, needs just to find something a little bit easier, but just sort of said through the line. Buckaroo, really good. Lindemann, good, poking up through the middle. Militarize had every possible in the winners. Just got that super, super sharp sprint. She's very dangerous when she can expose it. Especially on a pace, if pace on a pace deck. Yeah, if on pace or... yeah. Actually, like the bigger the field, the more dangerous she is as a rule, but wet, definitely. The problem is what's around. There's no weight for age horses left. We've got nothing. There's not many horses left. You've got Mr. Brightside and who else? There's no real weight for age horses around. So those slow run, sprint home affairs, she's going to be an absolute nightmare to beat unless, something comes out of the woodwork. Here it is, Learning to Fly. So this race, again, very even tempo. Not a great race on paper, but not poor either. Just sort of even throughout. They don't break any records out. They don't break any records home. Really even tempo. So you would say that pretty much every horse has had their chance. Put out a stupid video this afternoon of my range of emotions during this race. This is not the race. I could talk through why I hated the ride and then loved the ride. Yeah, I just changed my mind. I know it wasn't... I don't think it was a great ride, but it turned out a great ride, if that makes sense. What I think was it was a very poor decision early, or was going to set her the most monumental task in history. And from that position on, everything that could go right did go right. So how do you say that's a good ride or a bad ride? It's hard to say, but he made the best of a bad situation from this point on. He's given up, a horrible position here. I expected it to sort of lob far more forward, but I think maybe it was a product of Tiz Invincible going back too. I was really surprised to see Tiz Invincible being snagged out of the gates, and maybe Chad sort of thought his best position was to follow it into the race, which was completely mad. But yeah, I'm not really sure what happened at the start. Either way. So you got Komochi in an absolutely perfect position up here. Facile, I think Cristilli, this is the ride I would have been sort of thinking Tis Invincible would get, and I was sort of hoping that this is the run that Learning to Fly would get. So by this position, even though it's had to do a little bit more work to get there, it's been very lucky to get the run that it got. It's kind of the best way to put it, and he has saved ground in doing so. Towards the inside certainly wasn't a disadvantage. So yeah, you've got Facile. Who's the horse outside the leader? I'm a Steal, is it? Yeah, Steffi Magnetica at the back. So you got Autumn Ballet, Cristalli here. This is the winner. Kamichi is that Mumbai Muse, Kind Words, Arctic Glamour, Steffi Magnetica, and whoever we've got left out the back. Oh, that's just Invincible. Yeah, so like even it's been held up a little bit, Komochi, but obviously had a better run in transit. That draw just helped it save that little bit. Certainly I was very guilty of thinking she'd get over the top of them here, but I think she's nearly out of carrots by this point. Yeah, first up for 336 days, even though she'd been given sort of a long, slow prep, 3 trials. I think she was really well prepared by Annabelle. She paraded, pretty well. She'll definitely improve, but yeah, a huge effort, and she clearly knocks up. Like, she's definitely going to win the race here, and you can see she sort of just absolutely peaks, and I think she's just trying her absolute backside off. The winners of No Knock at All, really good effort. It had trialled well behind Learning to Fly, and was off a shorter break, and super fit, hard fit horse that had a long, hard prep last time in, so I think she was entitled to be fitter here, despite the change in preparation, but I don't think she was going to go past her. Cristelli was a good effort. I thought it went really well first up, and back that up. This horse is flying. Steffi Magnetica just needs that right run. Gets back a little bit too far. Has that good turn of foot. Maybe backing grade a little bit. She's run well down the straight. There'll be a race for her. She's just a little tricky horse, but she's flying. Tis Invincible was okay. The ride wasn't great. You can see back and wide sort of set a task. Arctic Glamour's inside. She was probably a little bit disappointing according to the betting, but I think the betting was super aggressive on her early. I think she got out a little bit late. Price-wise, what are we talking here? The winner got $765, Betfair SP 650 SP, so she was well backed and then sort of was a little bit easy very late. Facile was okay, had every possible chance in front, as we've sort of talked about. Even Arctic Glamour sort of got going late. I think the form will stand up for 3-year-old fillies grade. They'll all go sort of certain ways, up and back in grade, up and back in distance. So I think the first sort of 1, 2, 3, this horse, Facile, can definitely go back in grade. Tis Invincible will probably stay up at that high level. Steffi Magnetic can go back in grade, and Arctic Glamour maybe a length or two below these horses. But we'll see. She's an interesting horse. She certainly finishes off well enough. $4 this round, Yum. Yeah, the only worry is sort of that old second up hangover off this sort of run. I think it'll go to the surround. I'm hearing rumours James McDonald will be riding it. Each to their own on that. Don't do it, boss, please. Yeah, so in regards to the ride, I think he got away with a very poor decision early, whether it was premeditated or what they were concerned about, sort of giving her a hard, tough run wide. You can't really knock that. Whether they thought they would try and get the back of Tis Invincible and it sort of went further back than they anticipated. Anyway, it's in the books now, and yeah, I can't disagree with that. The Arctic Glamour win, and I think the sort of trial coming in was a little bit flattering too, but it was the only horse I sort of marked to lay just at the price on Saturday. We'll go for the surround. I think it'll be race by race just because she's had such a long, hard prep. I think I'd say that the surround is their target. I'd say so. And then if she sort of comes through that, they'll get her ready. But I think she was, 75%, 80% ready for Saturday, and she'll improve a bit, but not significantly, because I think they put a lot of grounding into her prior to that race. The last 2 races are pretty poor. This race is a fast tempo, but only because they come home so slow. Pretty even, just slightly above tempo to the 8 and 6. Come home really slow. Redstone Wall, was really well set up. Great ride. I honestly was worried that it was going to get too far back. As soon as it settled where it did in the run, anyone who's watching the live stream would have seen it. I was supremely confident about where it settled in the run, that it should be winning, but it took the whole straight to get there. So maybe it was a little bit disappointing. Maybe it wants a little bit further. Yeah, Timmy said he was just disappointed, just because it just felt like he had such a nice run. I don't know what they'll do with her. No real surprises here, except for maybe Louvois missing the start. I see that it's going for a spell. Sometimes it's a bad time when those sort of leader free-going horses start missing the start. I fell into one today in the last at Muswellbrook that did exactly that. I was sort of leading and pinging over 1,000, then leading and pinging over 1,200, then last out of the gates, never travelled and beaten a long way at Muswellbrook, so potentially going for a spell. Louvois doing the same here. Took quite a while to get to the front. Starter Mustala, every conceivable chance running fourth. Is Redstone Wall, a little bit keen in the run, and as I said, I think he did a good job to really be quite positive on it early and continue to be positive just to find that position, as close to a Stadio Mustala, and then try and let the horse relax. It does get a little bit keen, so that adds a bit of merit to it. I hadn't seen that previously. I haven't had a good look at these races, so I'll have a couple of looks now, but to this point, pretty much every horse has had their chance. There's a couple of horses out wide. I think that's Esti Fenny. Mahogany in the middle there. Is that Chase the Crown that's got the back of Esti Fenny, so it's got its chance. Miracle Spin coming wide. Battleton up the inside there. Louisville. I get the feeling Waller's sort of forgotten about Louisville, thinks it's found its mark. He starts pushing them up in back in distance, blinkers on, things like that, when he doesn't seem to really care about them. Built through the middle, had, I think that was 12 or 13 runs for the prep. Bunch finish, which is what you'd expect from these sort of horses. They're sort of take turns horses, I like to call them, but pretty much every horse was a similar run. The winner was just really well set up. And all of these horses are just similar runs, whether it's Miracle Spin, Chase the Crown, Logan Street, Lion coming through, Mahogany, what's his horse, Louisville. They've all pretty much done something similar. Perfect Thought was probably a good run, sat outside the leader. I hate them when they geld these horses mid-preparation, so a good effort from it to sit outside the lead, but again, not a lot of pressure, so you expect a horse of its quality to run well with that run, and it did, but it's hard for horses to be gelded mid-preparation and continue racing. From my experience, this horse, Etna Rosso, was not a bad run either. Yeah, these horses will line up in a similar race in a couple of weeks and probably do similar things. Redstone Well maybe goes up in distance. It's probably the one horse with a little bit upside. This last race is completely poxed. Another really weird betting move, but probably makes more sense now, seeing how bad they went. Yeah, obviously Thunder Lips is no superstar, but just looked to be absolutely gifted the race. You had Matthew Smith come out prior to the race and say that Time Quest was not ready to go and he was going to ride it negatively. So that, again, just put it another sort of rubber stamp that Thunder Lips was going to get its absolute chance in front. You had a horse like Gracie Styler, who hasn't won for 46,000 years, but going to be the main chaser. So, it had to run really poorly to not be in the finish. And it blew out, I think it started at $2.99 Betfair SP, $2.25 SP off, it was into 180 there at one point, which looked like it was fair enough, I thought. Yeah, 180 was kind of what you expect with a horse that just looked to be gifted the race, to be fair. They go out 7 lengths below to the 800, drop to 10 lengths below to the 600, and only come home half a length above standard. They've gone like 10 lengths below. So, putrid race. The only horse that you could probably be forgiving of is Time Quest, because it runs home sort of 11th fastest last 600, 8th fastest last 4, and 7th fastest last 200 of the day. Built through the line. If it wasn't ready and it's going to run further, that's its chance. But so you can see it's restrained back. Time Quest, Gracie Styler, every other horse, every possible. They're absolutely hacking to the bend, and they don't really quicken up. Look at Thunder Lips, just doesn't do a lot. Gracie Styler wouldn't run past me. Miss Cicconi's a very limited horse that's racing to her best, but that's as good as she can go. And the second horse is the only horse with any upside. But again, just a little bit of a worry coming out of this race. But yeah, if it was underdone and ridden negatively in a really slow tempo race, it's the only horse with upside, but be very wary of the form of that one. Yeah, Grace is in the winner. I agree with that. Look at these Melbourne races. Just look at like the last 4 or 5 or something like that. I actually haven't looked at these races barely. I hardly watched them live. Paul sent me through some figures. Again, I'll put them on the other screen. So this is the Vanity. We'll have a look at it. Grinzinger Bell wins the race. They've come home quick. They've gone out... leader's first section. So they've gone out quick and come home fairly steady. Leader of the 800, they've gone 7 lengths above. So, yeah, they've gone out really quick here and come home quite steady for a decent overall time, but a fast tempo. So, those up on speed are the ones you want to be leaning towards. Out the back have had a bit of tempo assistance here. Picture quality is horrible here. It's weird. The Sydney racing, you get sort of HD replays, and the Melbourne one's not. You can have a good look at the Good Rose Hill race noms and thoughts on purpose. I'll have a look at whatever meetings are up as soon as they go through these few races at Flemington. Yeah. So Grinzinger Bell leads all the way, does all the work early. Hard to knock it. That's Infatuation, gets up outside the leader. Molly Nickers is back here. French Endeavour looked like it sort of got held up a couple of times. Its effort was good, but it is in that second half of the field, so it has been pace assisted. Thought Molly Nickers sort of travelled well enough to certainly have its chance. Can't knock anything that hasn't had been able to run down this winner. The winner's certainly all merit for mine. It sort of worked hardest early. Infatuation's done a good job to sit outside it and run okay. It's the one that has worked the hardest in the race. And these ones down the outside have got fresh legs to a certain degree. As I said, sort of French Endeavour had to angle for this run a couple of times. So a little bit unlucky. It was a bit of a silly price in the race, but would you say it could turn the tables on the winner next time? Not confidently. The second horse was good through the line late. It definitely wants a little bit further and will improve with the run, but yeah, all merit for mine with the winner. Interesting run. Who's the red with the white down the outside? Is that number 8? Is that Thalos or something, is it? Where does it run? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. It looks like it just had an absolute barrier trial. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That pink Shandon. Doesn't look like they're really interested in doing a lot, so I'll watch the start. So half misses it back towards the inside there. Back. Does no work. On the back of Molly Nickers. Molly Nickers gets away from it. And then gets wound up late. So yeah, it's an interesting run. I don't know the horse that well. I'll have a look at it in a sec. This is not a bad run either. For a horse that didn't look like it tried real hard either. So what horse is that? That's Material Dreams. Or is it? No, it's Basilina. So this is Basilina first up. That was a horse I was interested in prior to the race. So, yeah, okay. So third up went 1200 maiden, won a maiden at Pakenham off a slow tempo, and then in that fast run race. Yeah, okay. So it's only had 4 runs in its life, Pink Shandon. I'll be keeping an eye on it. And yeah, this horse was a really nice barrier trial, even though, again, it was flattered by the tempo. Gets up 2,000 or more. Yeah, sort of once it gets to a mile or more, Basilina. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that horse. Yeah, that interesting race. Few sort of, I would say, Grinzinger Bell, the most merit in the race, clearly. French Endeavour was okay, but I don't think it's got the upside of a few of them. It had a run. Molly Nick is certainly knocked up. Infatuation was good, but I think that's as good as she goes. Pink Shandong was good, and Basilina was really good for further and longer and all of that. All right, what race is this? There's Hay Stakes. Another solid-ish tempo. Lead to the 800. So they go out quite quick to the 8 and then settle and then slow down to the 6. So it's a bit of an anchor drop from the 8 to the 6 and then come home only, a length below. So a fast-ish tempo to the 8 and they back it off from there. So the first half of the race, they're doing quite a bit of work, the first 600, and then they're backing it off. Good strong ring from Riff Rocket by memory. I was interested in this horse, Et2 Brute. Didn't think it'd be last, and once it was back there, it was in a world of pain. But yeah, they're definitely going quick here. I haven't watched this replay at all, so I'll watch this a couple of times too, because there are some interesting horses here for Dad. Cap Ferrar, Tannhauser's out the back last, the fence. King Colorado's obviously in here. Otago. Yeah, probably Verdad's the horse of most interest. King Colorado, we call it disappointing. I don't know. We don't know how good this horse Riff Rocket is, but yeah. So we got Verdad in the pink, Riff Rocket in the purple and white, and King Colorado outside it. Otago's in between them. They've all pretty much had their chance except for Verdad, who's trying to angle out here and is bumping with the Otago to do so. I can't really tell if it's got clear running there or not. I think it does. So yeah, they've pretty much all had their chance. So it's hard to say that anything's too unlucky here. Riff Rocket was first up. Did notice there was some good money for this horse late, which I always love. Waller horses returning from especially shortish breaks. A bit of market support's always really handy. In reflection, you go, wow, $8 was probably a silly price, or $9, whatever it was, sort of 10 minutes out. But it was that sort of race. King Colorado had the run under its belt, flashed home, did the same thing here. But I think the winner's clearly dominant. Looks like it's got reserves of energy, pricks its ears on the line, all good things you want to see going forward for a horse that's, sort of first up and going to progress further. I'd struggle to see these horses turning the tables on this horse. Looks like it's improved and come back better for mine. Cap Ferrari on the outside's interesting. So we'll have a couple of looks at this replay. Verdad was okay. Otago's hard fit. So first up, second up, first up. They've all run well. Is that my horse coming down the outside there, or is it even gone further back? Yeah, it is. So this is the Friedman horse down the outside too, but he had a run up as well. Set a task, he could probably improve, but probably needs a perfect draw and all sorts of stuff. Shin had a dirty 48 hours for me. Do we forgive him for the 500th time? Oh, Verdad, great run. Riff Rocket, amazing run. Apparently turned up, tuned right up, going to be poison odds next up. Yeah, I didn't read any mounting yard reports for that race, to be honest. So that's interesting information. And if it did look great there, but did love the way it sort of said pricked its ears and looked like the run hadn't hurt it at all. So even if it does harm, I'd still expect it to at least hold that mark, if not improve a little bit going forward. One of the controversial rides and races. This is a really weird Lightning Stakes. They go out 4.2 below the first section, do they? So they go out slow to the 800, slow down even further to the 600 metre mark in a Lightning Stakes, and then rip home for fast time. So regardless of the tempo, they've run fast time, which is really hard to do. I don't know whether it was windy or what. Usually I am better prepared than this, but really sort of slowish last sections for the whole card, really. This is the only race on the card with a significantly fast home section, but they did crawl going out. Wind gale hitting the inside run as well. So that makes sense. Hard to do sort of lead and win. So that adds even further merit to Grinzing and Bell's run, if that was the case, because it's certainly good merit and its effort. Let's have a look. Private Eye leading a Lightning Stakes. I think I saw Jamie Walter say that it's hard to explain to the owners that this horse leading this race after settling last in a McKinnon, but it is what it is. And Blake Shinn's superpower is getting horses to jump and settle and race closer than what they can. I think it certainly wasn't his aim, but obviously Joe Pride had him on the fresh side too and ready to go. So I think it's a combination of a great training effort, a rider who's not scared to take advantage of a position that was there for the taking. Once it was there for the taking, Cylinder gets really keen in behind. I'm Unstoppable in there. Bella Nipotina looked like it over-raced. He was really soft in betting late, which I thought was surprising, but sort of got boxed up and held in. Espiona toes up. That's how you can say, it's a weird race. I think this form's going to be very difficult to sort when they line up next up, because I doubt that there'll be a race shape like this wherever they go. But all you can do is sort of assess them off what you see. And in a sprint home, you're never going to get margins that sort of open up. And the first four across the line have basically all done huge jobs. You would say that if there was a horse pace affected, so the really slow tempos hurt it, you would say it's Espiona because it does look strongest through the line. But would she have been that close if it was a faster tempo? Would she have had to sort of reel in horses from further back and sustain that run for longer from further back? Yeah, probably so. So, I think she was a great effort. Was she a better run than the first two? I think it's pretty arguable. They've all done great jobs. Bella Nipotina was really solid as well. Cylinder, I thought, will improve. I didn't think he sort of loved being cluttered up in there. Will he need to go back in grade? Possibly. Is he a top-line sprinter? Possibly not. We'll find out. Is that Rich Fortune that ran alongside it? I'm assuming it is because I don't know the colours. Yeah, it was a good job. It did a good job, Rich Fortune. I don't know where it'll be heading, but I'd say the rest will be sort of all heading to a similar path. But it did a really good job late against that slow tempo. Maybe levelled out right on the line. Whereas Espiona was certainly not levelling out on the line. It was building through the line. Should be very hard to beat wherever she goes. And I think the Quokka, as I said, I heard it was going to the Quokka, would be a great race for it. I think it'll pick up and carry a horse like Overpass and King of Sparta as well. It'll beat it home. So yeah, I think it'd be a great race for them to take it to if that's where they do forget the final. Espiona picked up a few races. Great Aussie horse. Espiona loves the Melbourne way of going. It certainly does. It's a much improved horse though. It's its last sort of preparation and a half. It used to have those quirks and want to hang and do some horrible things, and now it doesn't. It seems to sort of run pretty straight. So I've got to look at this race because of the controversy, but I won't bother with the last. So the Elms handicapped. What are we looking at tempo wise? They go out -2 to the 800. So they're leader to the 800. Sorry, they're 2 above. They go out 2 above, but that's sort of fairly slow. It's the third slowest to the 800 of the day, and the other 2 races were down the straight. So of races that were around the circle, it is the slowest tempo of the day. Eaton Revolutionary misses race. Not much between them. And then coming home, they don't do a lot. The race itself is just sort of right on par. But they do sprint home fairly quick in comparison to most other races around the circle. Craig Williams can shit on my pillow and I forgive him. Yeah, I've never been able to catch him. Thoughts on Windstorm's run of 3 years look good to the eye. Give way late. Is it in this race? I'm assuming it is. I'll have a look. I've only seen the race once. But looking at things that, the way the sections of the day, this is a very controlled tempo, and they haven't sort of busted the clock coming home. So, it's just a very middling race, and I would say that all horses had their chance. Whether leading on the day was not ideal, that's arguable, but obviously Grinzinger Bell's got home in the same sort of race, going out, 5 lengths quicker in comparison for its class compared to this horse in its class. It's not straight 5 lengths, that's adjusted for class, just the way I prefer to look at it. And come home a lot quicker, leaders last year come home slower. So you would say that Grinzinger Bell had a lot harder run for a leader than this horse has. I think it's not the best angle, but this is the right race, isn't it? Yes, it is. So at this point, when he sort of decides that he's going to be positive, you can see he's definitely got that mindset out of the gates that he's going to try and, I'm not going to say lead, but at least hold a spot. Once he's committed to that after 100 metres, where's he going to go? Maybe runners kicked up under him that he didn't expect. The horse is maybe a little bit slower away, doesn't show as much speed, a combination of things. But where's he going to go from this point? I don't think he's in a position where he can try and drop in behind. There's too many horses underneath him to do that. So I would much prefer someone backing a horse to be positive. If there's no pressure there, then be negative, because you just never know where you're going to end up. It's hard to reverse park. Where does it get to? All of these horses that settled in the running line were inside him. So the horse obviously gets a little bit keen. You can see sort of races a little bit ungenerous. Whether that's, because he hasn't been in that position or not, or the wind, or a million other factors, you don't know. Saying that a horse is just going to regress or not perform to its best just because it hasn't led before, I find that a bit childish. I think it was all sort of overhyped. I've got no big issue with the race. He certainly controls the speed as much as he possibly can from this position. I think the horse ran to its best. I think it was priced ridiculously. It probably should have been closer to even money. And that's probably how he's run. If they run the race a number of times, he probably gets home some of them, but how do you say that he certainly should have beaten the winner, who is just clearly dominant late? He's done well to fight off the horse to his inside, or he's outside the leader, but the winner's just clearly dominant late. It has settled back in the field, but again, it's sort of over racing. They're not flying, there's no big gaps in the race, there's no big... What's wrong with the ride? I don't really know. For the day, maybe it was a little bit tough to do what he was asked to do, but he's $1.25. If you think that's why he was beaten and that he was justified at $1.25, I can't really see it. This is Windstorm out here, so he settles back, I'm assuming. What happens to him at the start? Sort of let drift out. Travels up really like the winner, doesn't he, Windstorm? Looks like he's pretty much cactus now. So he's had to make a run from, at least the 800 metre mark, Windstorm. Yeah, definitely a run that can be improved off. I like to see that he made ground quickly. And then, sort of peak. So, everything to here is good, which is all you want to see. He sort of nearly looks the winner, and then he looks like he peaks. So, for me, that's what I want to see from a horse that's off a long break or something like that. A horse that I want to forgive that's beaten that far and looks a bit plain late. I want to have seen that it's actually done something and expended some energy and done something positive before it levels out and knocks up, rather than if it sort of had just whacked into that position from back in the pack and done nothing. I'd be less forgiving of it, but I can see that there was some merit in the run. Yeah, a bit of a nothing race, to be honest. Shortest price in Vic since, it's just crazy. I don't know what's going on. I had no interest in the race, didn't bet, but I just sort of had a good look at the race 20 minutes out to see whether he was justified in being like super dominant over them off what he's shown previously, and he hadn't. Like, if you factored in significant improvement, you could say that he should have been a short price favourite. But as I say, like $1.25 is Winks odds. You know, I struggle to mark anything under $1.50 ever, so I certainly couldn't have marked it that short. I don't think the bookies are... I think the bookies are the ones shortening the prices, to be honest. I think there's bookies out there that find that it's of advantage to them to firm the prices, and because they are so easy to firm and there's such a lack of liquidity in races 20 minutes or 15 minutes and further out, and the way that these bots are set up, they're certainly basically artificially shortening due to manipulation with the exchanges. It's so easy to do. For a little amount of money you can start the ball rolling, then they sort of bounce each off like pinballs, and next thing you know, you can back and lay a horse with a $1,000 or two and firm it from $1.70 to $1.40. It's just not hard to do. So and it's completely artificial. And then who does that advantage? It advantages the corporates, because a lot of people love following what they think is smart money that's shortening, favourites. They throw them in multis, they throw them in trifectas, they throw them in exotics, they throw them in quaddies. It's great business for a corporate to lay a horse at $1.50 as opposed to $1.80 or $1.90, and it doesn't make sense for it to be someone smart shortening these horses, consistently, because there's just no one that's betting into these ranges consistently. It's crazy. So the only one who wants it to shorten is someone who wants to lay it, in my opinion. And no one's going to show their hand early and force and firm these things in like they have been. So, all right. I think the only one with early markets up's the Tab. Are they down? Oh, right. So I'll pull this over here, get rid of this. Stretch it out. Oops. Yeah, so the Blue Diamonds were the first one to look at. Personally, I think the horse to beat's Lady of Camelot. I'll have a look at its run in a sec. Bodyguard, High Octane obviously come out of the same race, and Coleman and Anisa come out of the same race. They do look the clear 5 top picks. I just think the Sydney form is stronger, and I think this horse is pretty special. I'll get to the Hobartville if it's up there for sure. Consolation pick for here. Well, yeah, it is to a certain degree, and it's funny that he sort of picked up Storm Boy off Tim, and now he's picking this horse up off Tim, but Tim's decided to stay in Sydney. I'll talk about that race in a minute. Yeah, so this Coleman, really impressive winner last time out. Again, I don't get all these sections for Melbourne. I don't do these races a lot, but I do get... Yeah, well, it comes out of the same race, right? Haneza. The worry is obviously 1,000 to 1,200 metres. It's just a huge task for a horse to jump from 1,000 to 1,200 metres for mine, and a 2-year-old especially. It's to me, I'd say I would say 1,000 to 1,200 is like the 1,000 to 1,400 for a normal horse, which means you need to be a miler. From the way I sort of look at things. So again, this horse has to be a super strong horse. It does a good job, but it, off an even tempo, it quickens and looks really smart. There's no weaknesses in the time, anything like that. This is the race you're talking about. So this is an Ezra in the nose roll that goes out to the back, and Coleman's in the blue. So they're both taken back off this sharp tempo, but it's sort of a sustained fast tempo, so it's a good effort from anything that comes back and closes. They both travel really well. 1,000 metre tempo, they get back and travel really well. Just no knocks. Sorry, Coleman's in the white nose, isn't it? So I actually just want to see the start. So it's got good speed, Coleman. It'll definitely hold a spot over 1,200. It probably could have led this race if they wanted to. I don't think Aneza could have led. did sort of half dip at the start there, so he can certainly settle a lot closer, which is a positive. I like that this horse is off the bit a little bit early, Coleman, and then sort of is able to quicken off it eventually and sort of build through its gears, and then strong through the line. And as it down the outside, a little bit different, but it too has it's shown that it can sustain a run as well. But yeah, these horses aren't stopping. It's just a really good, strong win. I don't think I could give a strong argument that Aneza could have beaten at home, because this horse has sat outside that tempo and quickened off it, and you can see late it's really super strong, and Aneza's not closing on it, even though it's had to make a longer run from back in the field. Yeah, if this draws 14 and this draws 3, maybe, but on level playing ground, I'd have to be with Coleman. Who's the other horses? Bodyguard and... So Bodyguard was off 2 trials, had one in Sydney, one at Flemington, then come back to Caulfield. I just want to have a look at this run again to make sure I've got the right horse. All these goddamn James Harron horses all look the same to me. So it's in behind. It looks tight at the end of 1,000 there, which is fine. Got no problem with that. First start in a race, 2 trials leading into the Caulfield run. It was really soft in betting here, and the stablemate obviously had the better draw on paper, the inside draw, High Octane. So we've got Stay Focused, High Octane and Bodyguard in this race. What's the tempo like here? So, quick tempo, but maybe not as strong a race on paper as Coleman's, but this is 1,100, and that was 1,000. So Bodyguard's 3 wide with cover. Not a bad spot to be. I think it was pretty advantageous to be up towards the inside here, so, neutral probably spot. Good ride from Zara. High Octane back on the inside, held up. Stay Focused has certainly had to do all the work in the run, as opposed to Bodyguard. Hate how it gets its head up, but it's certainly got an engine. Yeah, I'd be concerned about this form to a certain degree, just because Stay Focused has sat outside them and Bodyguard struggled to get over the top of him. He's not exactly extending away untouched. He can improve fitness-wise, but he certainly has to improve off this, I would say, in relation to Coleman. The worry is the 1,100 metres as opposed to 1,000. Like the Coleman win is 1,000 going to 1,200. High Octane, a complete barrier trial. You're treating it as, I'm not saying it was given a barrier trial. I'm saying I'm treating it as a barrier trial. It's a dangerous horse. It was a good win on debut. We'll probably have a quick look at it. This was a good win, but it's probably 3 or 4 lengths inferior to the one we just looked at. So, even though it was given a bit of a barrier trial there, in hindsight, I'm not sure this is Blue Diamond winning form. So yeah, I've got question marks over all this. Even this ties in with sort of trunk in Sydney, Stay Focused form. I'm not sure that's the right form. I'm not sure Bodyguard's the right form line. I do think Coleman and Aneza, but more so Coleman is very dangerous, but has to jump from that 1,000 to 1,200. So Lady Camelot, really good on debut, and then sort of did everything it could wrong. Came back 2 strong trials over 900, 750, typical Gay Waterhouse trials, fast time. 1,100 metres first up on a fast track at Rose Hill. Certainly is leader sympathetic, but I think this is a pretty deep race. I don't think the plan was to go to the Blue Diamond prior to this, so she's gone that well that they were happy to bring her here. for a fillies race, and I think the fillies are not hopeless this year, I thought this was not a bad race. But what I want to sort of say is that you can see here she doesn't get around the bend at all well. She's on her wrong leg. And then it's not until he sort of gives her a few here. You can see they're going to get to her nearly. She looks like she's struggling. And when he sort of gives her a couple of hits with the left hand here, she changes lead and really starts to let down and go. And I think she'll be far better for that experience. I think they've struggled to get her to change the lead leg and really let down. And that was the first time we've really seen her do it. And whilst it was sort of scary, if you backed her, once she did change the lead leg, she was really super strong. Pricks her ears through the line. Fast time, all of that. She's got that tactical speed. I don't think she has to improve a lot to be the one to beat. And I think she's going to have no issue with 1,200 metres. I think she's clearly the horse to beat, and Coleman's the danger. Nothing too exciting from a betting perspective, but I think she should be short price favourite. I'd start Tuck. I think low played. I agree with that. Johnny, what happened to Metallicity? Metallicity was a long time ago, wasn't it? That was the Snowden thing. I'm not sure what happened to Metallicity. Did it get retired, or did it get booted to? They just have so many of them that not Australian Bloodstock, Newgate, and they all sort of roll into one a little bit. Metallicity. Mustn't be the spelling. I know the horse you're talking about. Oh, should be age or about to go left. Yeah, I just think that they're just clearly superior. So yeah, China Horse Club. So that's a Blue Diamond. I think it's pretty straightforward. I honestly think if Lady of Camelot handles the way of going and does everything right, she's going to be extremely hard to beat. And if Coleman can run out that 1,200 metres, he'll run well too, but he has to do that. What prices are they? $4.50 and $6. Yeah. I think there's a little bit of value in the $6 Lady of Camelot. I don't think there's any value in the $4.50 Coleman. And I think the $9 in Nezza, to be honest, I think that's about right. Oakley Plate. Oof. Nothing really stands out there. I'd rather wait and have a look at that. Once barrier draws and things are out, I can't see much there. Futurity. It'll probably start shorter. If that Jimmy starts $1.25, it'll probably start shorter if it shows up. Hobart Stakes. So what was the horse you're interested in here? Was it the Hobartville? Cafe Millennium? Yeah, I'm not sure about Cafe Millennium. I know they gave it a wind up last prep. And then it just didn't do a lot. Its runs weren't that bad, first and second up. I'm not sure it's not a short course horse. Like, its best run in its life is over 1,100 metres on debut, and then this is what frustrates me. 2,000 metre trials, 1,300 first up, 1,400 second up. It's run the fastest last 800 of the day, but the 20th fastest last 200. So it's dying on the line. It's got a sharp sprint, but maybe it's a short course horse. Let's see what the Mortal Star. Yeah, jury's out for me. How far is this race? How far's the Hobartville? $1,400. See, so again, they're going 1,400 metres with this horse first up. I think that's wrong. I'd rather see it down the straight than 1,400 metres first up. Cafe Millennium, Salt Coats was just okay the other day. NCAP was just okay. I think $2.50. Tom Kitten's well and truly short enough. This is the horse that can improve Celestial Legend, but we'll wait and see who's riding it. And yeah, I think $5 is just about short enough. There's nothing really there that you could say is that exciting to turn the tables. Maybe Lavon. What price is it? There's no speed in the race. I just went around and won well first up in a nothing race. Controlled but if it surely it can't turn the tables. It's a horse that'll lead and stick on and be hard to beat if it runs well. If it draws to lead, which I'd assume it would. 1400, no problem. That was a 61 after. Yeah, I don't think there's much edge in the market there at all. This is a bit boring so far. Duke Cass. They're just so tight. Like, I don't know what that percentage is, but how can you got 40%, there's 80%, 94, 7, there's 110. They're putting up 150 before you know anything, and no one can have a bet with them anyway. It's pretty crazy. Distance I don't think is too short for Tom Kitten, but I think it's on the borderline. Yeah, I was obviously very good through the line there, but again, you're looking at this race on paper, there's no speed, so if it draws awkwardly, could easily have to put up a Herculean performance, and I don't think it's good enough to do that. I don't think it's good enough to sit back and wide over 1,400 metres and round up horses. I think it's going to be, exactly third, fourth up mile is where you want to be taking 6 to 4, where he's potentially going to be dominant. A horse like Militarize obviously doesn't look like it's anything super special. Maybe Riff Rocket's the horse that's more dangerous, but maybe it doesn't come back to Sydney. I'm not really sure what their plan is. Silver Slipper's a good race. Again, there's no real upside here. I do think where the upside lies is these two horses can both firm for the Slipper. So if you're interested in backing them for the Slipper, I would say that prior to the race is quite interesting, and I think they're both big players when it comes to the Slipper. I think these two and Storm Boy are seriously the top three and by a fair margin. I don't know what prices they are now. And the filly, if she comes through that run in Melbourne, is probably fourth pick. I think that Snitzelland's probably just physically the horse that's got to handle itself through, whereas Storm Boy's got the hard prep. 280 is just short enough. It doesn't matter what happens. Espionage, I think there's better around than $13 and Straight Charge $21. I think they're a little bit forgotten horses. Espionage hasn't been seen since that first start. I know they've been sort of waiting to produce it. Yeah, it's got all the strong form around it, and if Gay ends up with 5, 6, 7 runners in this race, which is potentially the case, they're going to go quick. And the horse that I probably want to find of hers is the Stalker. All these decent forms come out of this race, and this is like Espionage, Straight Charge. Prost has come back and won well, and Espionage was ridden off speed here, tucks in behind. Certainly looks the forgotten horse for me. Straight Charge on the inside, Espionage the outside. Prost runs third. Who else is in this race? Highness, which came out and ran second in the Magic Millions, won that Magic Millions race after it. Fearless, Metropolitan Place since. We talked about Highness. Who else is in this race? Force Red, Scampy, Capital. This certainly has turned out to be a pretty strong form race. Forgotten Runner. I think Nash is riding it. I don't think there's much between them on Saturday. I know they put up sort of $4 each Straight Charge, and that was when I was interested in the horse. But 280, 260 or whatever they are now, not a lot. But I think if you're interested in these horses for the Slipper, I think a little bit better than $13 Espionage is well and truly fair enough, and $21 Straight Charge. If either of them perform as I expect, and I expect them both to perform well on the weekend, I think they'll both firm. Lady of Camelot, whether she can go and win a Blue Diamond or not and come back and win, I'm not sure. Any other races worth looking at out of the chute you would want to settle in the first 3 or 4? Yeah, I agree. But Golden Slipper could be a very, very high pressure Golden Slipper. Can't get on to win a Mars bar. That's exactly right. Anything else to look at? Any other questions, horses, review, races to look at from the weekend before I run away? Yeah, I think the Millie Fox is kind of a race where there's like off noms, you just got to be a little bit careful. You just got to. I'd rather wait and see that one on paper. Whereas the Silver Slipper and Hobartville, these are horses that are sort of on a set path, and you know where they're going to line up. Whereas the Millie Fox, they've definitely got a lot of different potential targets, and you've got horses that are sort of deeper into the preps first up. It's going to be a mix, whereas those other horses, they're sort of all following the same stepping stones. They're easy to line up in early betting. I might run away, thank you. I'll hopefully do similar things like this as I go on. Any sort of suggestions, let me know. Reviews, previews. Friday nights I might just pop in and have a look at a couple of races if they are at Canterbury and talk about some races on Saturday. Gold Trip back in the Peter Young certainly interests. Gold Trip. Yeah, I'd have to wait and see for sure. Cheers, guys.